Alright, what's up, gang? Made it through another day. Um, and I realized I haven't made a lot of videos about depression. I have a lot of videos on chronic pain, probably not as many as those people would like. I don't like to talk about it too much. And a lot of what I've already said is really all I have to say about the chronic pain. I no longer am in chronic pain. Talking about things can be triggers. But anyway, I'm jumping into it because the by the way, this is the dog tag of my grandmother's fingerprint. I carry with me in my truck. But for people that don't know what depression is, I don't want to say shocked, but and I'm not appalled. It's somewhere in the middle. I've heard some horrendous things from people who I was actually on a phone call with one of my friends, and they were talking to their parents or grandparents because they needed a place to stay because they couldn't function. And their grandparents were like, "You just need to get a job, or two jobs, or three jobs." That's what we did when we were younger for depression. We just got a job. Now, granted, I do think that in certain situations, having purpose is of course important. But I've met people on all spectrums of these disorders, from friends and family to a lot of people who subscribe to my channel. And I mostly suffer with sort of anxiety issues, not panic, um, and burnout related stuff like that. But I've had bouts of very, very serious depression, and when I have them, it is ungodly. And I just want to shoot this video for maybe families or something that you could, if you suffer and you want to give to your family and let them watch this. But the depression that I've seen, and then I'll talk about, I'll describe it, but I've seen people, fully functional, wonderful mothers, go from just that to being able to get out of bed. People that are funny and witty and young in their 20s, full of life, full of energy, full of just almost overnight unable to get out of bed, and they'll sit there and they could sleep 14 hours a day. Some people don't sleep at all. Depression varies on symptoms, but and they don't. They tell me, they're like, I don't understand. I don't brush my teeth. I don't take a shower. They don't take showers. Not everybody, but I never did that. But a lot of them, personal hygiene, they just don't care about. They talk about death and in a way that is like it's no big deal, because it's not to them. Death to them is a release. It's a comfort, and the only reason they stay alive a lot of times is because of the families that they don't want to hurt. And in my case, that, along with the hope that I could get better. And hope is the most powerful tool in fighting depression, because a lot of times depression is not going to go away overnight or in a week or maybe even in a month, but because it could take years to reach that level of impairment. But hope and seeing success stories and positive stories, and knowing that other people like yourself have gotten better, to me is the ultimate, or one of the ultimate um, sort of initiators in the healing of mental health issues. So for me, depression, when I get it, it feels like an emptiness. Like I don't know who I am or why I am. I feel melancholic. It's hard to describe. It's like when I was a kid and, would go to like an amusement park and have a day of extreme fun, and the next day it was like cloudy and rainy and lonely. I remember feeling really melancholic and like it's hard to explain, but it's like that times 100, and you kind of just walking around, but you're not really there. Sometimes I'm not even really thinking. It's almost like I've checked out. Um, you feel so lost, and we talk about hope, but a lot of times there's no hope. There's just despair. This inner, at the root of your soul, this corruption, this depression. It's just so it gives you the lack of energy, the lack of will, zero motivation. You don't want to do anything. You don't want to see anybody. Thinking is hard to do. You can't think. You can't focus. You can't watch TV. You can't do anything that you used to do, that you want to do. And then a lot of times, especially in today's society, we often look at social media, and then watching TV, if we do, can trigger things and make us feel jealous of the people that are doing really well, and everybody seems happy, and they're on the beach and they're on vacations, and depression just robs you of your will to live, robs you of your soul, it robs you of everything good in your soul. It's almost demonic to me, and there's no worse feeling than being in the depths of a depressive episode. And when that lasts for weeks and then months and then years, people look for a way out. And my own personal, I'm lucky that I have periods of depression. I definitely have mild depression and have had it my whole life. But that deep level of depression, I don't get consistently anymore. And when it hits me, it only lasts a few days. Like I said, I have tools now that I can use to combat it. Um, and trying to grow my spiritual health will give you that foundation to weather those storms. And although I'm very far from being really spiritually pronounced, I'm growing in that way. Um, and then for me, I'm very lucky to have a loved one. My wife is really the only one that's always been there for me through these years. And unfortunately, and not to bash them, but my family has not. And it saddens me because I have a very big family, and people have their own lives. Not everybody, understands, and a lot of people have their own problems and their own depressions, whether it's mild or whatever. Everybody's going through something, so it's like my mother. She doesn't understand it at all. I've tried to explain it to her in the past, and she just kind of glazes over it because I think she feels like a bad mother. Because how could her son suffer depression if she was a good mother? Well, the truth is that I don't think she was a good mother. I think that she tried a lot. I don't want to say she was a bad mother, but it was such a hard situation being a single mother and not having money, the stress that she had to endure. And in some ways, she was a great mother, but in other ways, she couldn't be because she didn't have the money, or I don't know. It was just constant stress and fear and anger and stuff like that. But that's a different story. But anyway, depression often does happen or start in childhood. Depression can be caused by many things, typically trauma. It can be hereditary. There's genetic components to it. Definitely, trauma can cause it, and even vitamin deficiencies in some people can be a cause of it. Yeah, some lucky people. I'm not trying to say you're lucky for having depression, but there have been people I would consider lucky that have a vitamin D deficiency or an allergy to gluten, and then they fix that issue, and then their symptoms go away. I've also seen and heard people who get spontaneously healed by God and healing in that way. So um, there's medications out there that can help depression and sometimes make things worse. That's why they have black label warnings on them about how they can actually lead to suicide. Um, these companies pay out tens of millions of dollars in lawsuits every year from people that kill not only themselves but other people after starting these medications. They can have a negative impact. I'm not saying don't take medications. What I'm saying is they're not good for everybody, and that people who start a new medication should be monitored by a loved one, and they're supposed to be monitored by their healthcare professional. But that, in my at least in my world, never happens. They just give you Lexapro, expect you to be better, and whatever. Okay, you're already depressed, so you should be monitored if a loved one, or they should be monitored if starting a new medication for change in behavior. And in my case, antidepressants were a complete disaster for me. So, and I talk about that in my other videos. Depression is not a serotonin deficiency in any way. It's way more complicated than that. It's really an issue of neuroplasticity, um, and, and other issues, high glutamate and so forth, and it gets different for other people. I'll be right back. Coffee, hey, my one viewer, you stayed. Sorry about that. But yeah, suicide is the second leading cause of death in our youth, and that needs to change. And the way that changes is with education, understanding the signs of depression, especially in our younger people. It can start with lack of energy, and there's symptoms, and they shouldn't be avoided. If people are having symptoms of depression, they need to be looked into. And like I said, don't just think that a medication is the only fix. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not saying don't trust doctors. I'm just speaking from experience and reading lots of research and talking with hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years on these matters. But there's other things we can do, and a lot of times it is nutritional. If there's no traumatic experience in your child's life, um, or your family's life, and they don't have a history, or they weren't abused or raped, or whatever, because stress is typically one of the biggest culprits in these disorders. But if they don't have any of that stuff, it could very well be a deficiency in vitamins or nutrients, and they might not be getting the right foods. And changing the diet, fish oils, and good quality meats, these things are proven to help eradicate depression in a lot of people. So it is true that poor lifestyle and poor diet can absolutely calls depression. So depression is not a one-size-fits-all disease. Depression, in a lot of situations, is a symptom of something else going on. But what happens when people are depressed and they're so depressed, they perpetuate the depression because they feel un they feel like they cannot be healed. They feel like there's no way out, and they feel like their brain is destroyed. So they have what depression does is it robs you of your hope and your positive thinking, which the only way out is to think positively. So how can you get out if you can't think positively? Because that inner roommate in your head is telling you, no, you'll never be enough. You'll never be out of this. You're going to be staring at this wall forever. You're never going to get better. But no, people that stay alive, they get better. It takes time for some people, and it takes the right med or the right doctor or the right type of therapy or TMS, lifestyle change, all those things. But there is something out there for you. There is something out there for your loved one. I mean, one guy who tried everything was so depressed, he was staring at a wall for 3 years in depression. Tried niacin, and niacin literally, and you can look at that on drugs.com, that has a higher rating than Prozac. Niacin by itself, for many people, completely eradicates their depression. So don't give up, be encouraged that there are so many things to try. Guided imagery, guided meditation's really been helping me. There's like I said, TMS, and then there's the other one, the Fisher Wallace device I put on my head. But not everything is about what we take in food wise and what we take in medication wise. There's also family support. One of my biggest problems is that I isolate. And depressive people, they isolate for multiple reasons. One, it can hurt to be around happy people that don't understand things. Number two, just don't have the energy or the focus or the concentration to really be around people, so it's frustrating. But not to force them to do things that are really uncomfortable, but to be there so they know that someone's there and someone cares, and to not judge them for being lazy or whatever the case may be. To give them that time to heal and give them that space and that emotional space to heal themselves. That's an important, really important issue. Because if you're judging them and you're like, hey, you're just lazy, get up, whatever, that's just going to make them feel guilty for feeling sick. And it is sickness. They're sick. Look at it as it's like a disease, like the flu or lupus or whatever you want to call it. These people are sick, and you may not have a blood test that can confirm that. But when people are sick, you don't force them to do things they can't do. But at the same time, you have to find a middle ground. You cannot let them stay sitting there all day ruminating about their symptoms. That is a recipe for suicide. Okay, it's a recipe for suicide. If you let your loved one, or if you let yourself sit there all day alone and you just ruminate like I have about, I'm not going to get better, this and that, it's terrible. I've had situations where I was like, no, I don't have the energy, I can't do this, I can't get out. I had people over and I was really nervous because I was like, well, what if I'm too tired? And then I had a wonderful time, and I was like, oh my gosh. I've also had it backfire on me, but if you want to live a life and keep going, you have to convince your brain that you're not going to let the depression win, that you can take your own life back. It's in your hands to get better. It's in your hands, and that, this demon or whatever you want to label it, you could give it a name. His name could be, Jonas or whatever. I don't know. But you can't let Jonas or this demon win. And that you have a say so in getting better. So I think it starts with spirituality. It starts with good health, called TLC. So I'm talking about like healthy eating is huge. Eating lots of high quality fats, like olive oil, coconut oil, fish oil. Avoiding grains. Doing a high fat Paleolithic style diet. I'm not saying that's going to cure you, but it might. And it definitely is going to help repair a lot of damage. Talking with your doctor, a good doctor, someone that actually listens, finding someone that has experience with your particular type of symptoms. You got to find that. Um, it's a whole approach, and then more often than not, therapy. Finding a group of friends or a support group that can be therapeutic with. Talking to somebody, even if you can't afford a good therapist, because I've had some really crappy therapists, but if you can't find a good therapist, find a support group. Use apps like Meetup to find or create. I created an anxiety and depression support group in my area, and they meet for coffee, like once a week. These are all things like if you're watching this video, it's probably because you are depressed. But if you're not, and it's your family that's depressed, you're not helpless. Just being there and being supportive, knowing that someone's around and willing to take them to the doctors or show up with some stew, even if they don't want to talk, just listen, listen, listen. So this video is dual purpose, but and this is something that you can, like I said, make your family watch. But these are the things that really help people overcome the depression. And yes, I've seen people just get on Wellbutrin or some medication, and bam, I mean, that I could ever even realize. And um, medication for bridge, I think people make a lot of mistakes assuming that medication is going to save them forever. And with that assumption, they don't do the things that made them depressed in the first place, essentially, which is not take care of their mind and their bodies, and their spiritual health. So your body through exercise, cardio is proven to be more effective than antidepressants, and I can attest to its healing benefits. If you can do cardio, get your heart rate up. It boosts adrenaline, hormones. Run in nature, okay? And maybe even get a friend to run with you. But that, I always feel better. If I'm like so depressed, like I'm having bad thoughts, I can go on a run and I can feel better afterward. It doesn't last forever, but it's one tool in my arsenal, or one weapon in my arsenal. And okay, so taking care of your body and then eating the healthy things we talked about, combined with fresh green juices, vegetables, all that stuff. So, that's always helpful to nourish your body, and that will nourish your brain, nourish your mind. It'll help with cognition and a lot of things. And even if it's 10, 20% improvement, that is improvement. And what happens is if you start improving, at least for me, as soon as I saw a little bit of improvement, that was like a avalanche. That was because I was like, okay, I'm on the right road. If I can improve, I can get better. And when you have one window, you're like, okay, I can get back to life. So have hope. It will get better, but there's work to be done to probably change your lifestyle and your life to a more conducive healing environment. If you're in a toxic relationship or around toxic people or doing drugs, yeah, I didn't even mention that. I think it goes without saying you can't be doing all those drugs and stuff. So if that's your issue, then a detox facility is obviously, if you're an alcoholic or a drug abuser, then that's obviously something that you have to start with. And in any case, if you're feeling that bad and you don't have a support system and you think you're gonna kill yourself, you got to check in. You got to check in somewhere and try to get help. But this is one of many videos I'm gonna be shooting about depression because now it's even closer to my heart than before. And depression mostly is something I've overcome. I focus a lot on lately on what I'm going through, but which is the after effects of burnout. Anyway, but depression is one of the worst things you can experience in life, and chronic depression is terrible. But there is help out there. There's new drugs being coming out on the market all the time. There's off-label medications that good doctors can prescribe if you see one.